Okay, so that's the old sheds, the entrance, it's a bit full, slightly sloping roof, it goes to the laundry roof. Yep, so a bit of a rock garden there, driveway slopes in. And if we go up the path, so we're on the opposite corner. That's where the stormwater's meant to go in. It's not connected at the moment. And that's where it was connected. Going to the laundry. It's about 1.5 by 2 square meters, or 1.5 by 2 meters. It's got the connections. Basically the laundry is pretty good. The power point here has actually got an earth going into it. Bit of a door here, or it's not a door, it's more of a entry or exit into the main shed. Going here, and we have a light switch, and just up above it we have a gutter that goes through the middle here. Now this is all looking a bit of a mess because when it pours rain, water sort of goes down and basically this light switch gets wet, which is why it is now no longer connected. Down here just got bikes here because all the floor area here does get wet if it does rain, which does happen occasionally. Worth noting, the floor level right here plus the laundry is exactly the same. Just zip over here, so come in. Concrete slab, fine. Concrete slab here. And then it goes into where the carport part is, and it's actually down probably 6 inches. And the car would come in here if we ever use this, but the problem is if you come in here with your car and open the doors, basically you're not going to be able to get out too well. On this side, because of the difference, most car doors now will actually hit here because of the 6-inch difference. So the carport part is the lowest part of the shed. It's probably 6 inches lower than the rest. It's a pretty good slab, but nothing can really go here because it is on a slight angle. Then there's this, what I would describe as, power here, little storage shed, but again this one sort of suffers from if it is a bad storm. It gets a bit of water in it. It's actually quite old and really needs to be done up. All of it's sort of made from scrap wood, really. Some of it's painted, some of it isn't. All the roof has got this aluminium-y foil on it, which is pretty good, but now it's sort of all basically falling apart. It's done its job. Few stains from water where the odd drip does get through. Now where we go into what was my grandfather's workshop, there is a step here, again 6 inches of difference. The slab in here is basically, from what I can tell, is straight. It has got a few defects but not major. From what I can tell, it hasn't sunk at all. There's no sinking or cracking, it's just shown its age a bit on the top. Nothing much. Now, worth noting is for the entire length of the shed, we have next door's garage, which is, I don't know what you call it. It's not that sort of brick, it's masonry bricks I suppose. But I did some measurements. It is basically running parallel to this shed. and it is, well, from what I can tell, level. It is pretty good reference as to what is and isn't level. Now, I've stripped off, there were weatherboards on the other side of these rafters and things. They've all been pulled off because like 20% of them were probably fallen off by their own accord, and because we can no longer get around the other side and bang them on, well, it's no point having some of them off and some of them on, so I ripped them all out carefully, and that allowed me to see what sort of shape the framework and that here is in. Now, it doesn't take a genius to work out, looking at some of these, that a lot of them bend, and by saying that, I measured the distance from some to the brick wall, which is parallel, and found in one area to another area, like from the left hand side ones, approximately halfway up, it's 19 centimeters, or actually more than 19 centimeters from the front to the brick. And if we go right down here where there was a dead cat wedged in the wall when I undid it, it's just over 12 centimeters, so it's a 6 centimeter difference. And basically in this corner, when I stand here, you can actually see it bows out, or from the bottom it bows out in the middle and then goes in drastically up near the top. And I think that might have been done at the time when this other shed was put in and things were sort of pushed and shoved in order to get things to fit better. The window here has definitely seen better days. It's all rotten wood. Well, the frame itself is good. The actual window itself, because it was 3-ply, you know, 20 years of getting wet, that's just almost see-through. Then I've got this little window here. I don't know what reason that serves, because it's good for nothing. Standard louver windows over here. The other walls are actually surprisingly quite straight and square. The ceiling up here, sort of a few exposed beams. They're actually good. They're actually hardwood, and I checked them and they actually seem quite solid. Good solid centre piece here. It's doing its job, even though I still wouldn't want to get on the roof without a brace of underneath it. Yeah, the wall that sort of divides this workshop with the shed. If I give a little demo here, it's basically, you know, it's no load bearing in that. It's basically just there for looks and a bit of insulation. But in saying that, there's a nice gap up the top where, you know, makes it hard to do anything with cooling, heating. Then up here, it's a bit of a gap. You know, it's just full of defects, I suppose. They all add up to money. The roof itself is actually quite rusted now, and I wouldn't want to do this room up for the risk of the roof deteriorating and dropping water over everything. There is a bit of an indication up here that, you know, it looks like water has actually seeped through a little bit. Not much, but that's where it starts. This aluminium stuff here is really starting to sag. It feels quite crappy in there now. It's like a bag full of something. So that'd have to be replaced. The roof has to be replaced. Now, the roof here is one level because we're up a bit, and then in the carport part it sort of comes down a bit, and because of that the shed has actually got 3 levels of roof. So if only the roof was to be redone, I would seriously think about just lifting the lowest parts are making it so the roof is all entirely one roof, and then it'd have one lot of guttering which would be on the end, and then it would go into stormwater rather than the three parts where it's going now. Down here we'll have a look. This is again where you go into the main workshop. Come around here, and as you notice there's actually a small gutter that runs through the middle here, and that goes all the way out, and then it exits the shed and goes down the driveway, but it also sort of goes out and under the house where it's really not wanted. You know, you don't want water being directed under the house. Now there's an outlet here. Now this comes from a gutter on the other side, so it goes down through here, comes out here, and then just makes its way along and all over the path and down the driveway. I really don't want that. It just has to be stopped. If we look up here, this is going back towards looking into where the laundry would be. It's got a huge support beam here. Now, being 6'3", this from here it's fine, but if I get it up on the slab where the laundry level is, suddenly, you know, this is, you know, only about 5'8", and I have smashed my head on this many times, and originally it actually had some nails on here to hang things on, so the first time I ever came here I hit my head on it and actually had a nail go through the top of my head, which didn't impress me much, so I ended up by pulling out every single nail that was sticking out of this building. Just a wall. I mean, it's got a tilt door that's well, yeah, it works, but it's a bit of a hindrance at times. It's a very horrible height for anyone that's 6'3". Even when it's fully open, it is at that very bad height which will whack you on the top of the head quite easily. Let's see, the other thing is here, you know, here's next door shed again. Yes, you can see there's nothing really behind it. There's all the support beams holding up the shed, but there's nothing tacked on here, and I've never liked that. So if I got a new shed, basically it would be freestanding by itself and would have its own walls rather than sort of relying on what's here. I can remember as a kid though, I'm pretty sure it used to have weatherboards, and it seems that the weatherboards were ripped off on this section of the shed when this other one was put up, so I've got no idea where the exact boundary is, but as far as I'm concerned, the start of this here must start with the end of the brick wall, and I'll probably be limited as to what I can put here because of potential where they can fit something with regard to a wall going all the way. As far as slabs go, I'll probably have to build it up. You know, they gave me some options, but I think putting a good slab on top of what's already here is probably the best option. There's no way I want to be digging up this. Some of it has got reinforcement in it. It is actually quite thick. I have drilled a few bits and found it is going down at least 100 mil. There's no sign of it subsiding or anything, which is good. Apart from having to dig it out if I was to do it from scratch, there's also the issue of having to pay a fortune to have it dumped in the right spot, and it's not cheap for that. The wooden shed itself would probably make pretty good firewood for most of it, being hardwood and that. I could probably sell or use some of the beams because they're in pretty good nick. Electrical, Well, this part of the shed has got absolutely none. Basically the front door when it's open, it's got an extension cord from the laundry that comes through, and I just use that to hang a light off or to start up the circular saw. I can't really store too much here because it's all on an angle. The workbench, it's not where I want it, but it's about the only spot where it doesn't rock around because of the difference in the level. The door I can probably save. It's a pretty good door, but everything else that's hanging on it, I mean, this whole wall would have to be redone if I was going to keep this, and that's just another cost. The power does come in here, but you know, a 50-year-old bakelite switch that I don't like. This is the wiring. I don't know who did that and when. Well, I know when. It was easily 40 plus years ago. You know, got all these sorts of things and hodgepodge of wires. I just don't like that really. By the time I pay for a Sparky to come in here, $500 to fix this, I might as well have him coming in for a new shed. One did start doing the wiring, but because the wall panels weren't on, he left it, and then I've sort of thought, well, you know, putting wall panels on this here, I started to do it because I got some second-hand ones, and instantly you could see things were just not square, not level, just asking for problems really. And at the end of the day, you know, if I ever sold this place, I don't know how I could describe the shed. Liability, I suppose. If I totally do it, put a new slab, put a proper shed that's rated, you know, with the modern ratings, whatever they do. Have an electrician put proper power through it. Make sure there's earth, because at the moment the old lead that was in here didn't have an earth, which I didn't like much, especially for a workshop. You know, it's just got so many things that need to be done on it. Stephen Cottrell, the builder, basically had a bit of a look and he said, well, honestly, knock it down, redo the slab, put a new shed on it, and you'll never look back. I suppose the other thing is too, with the laundry, we want to move the laundry inside, so basically it's a good excuse to get rid of all the plumbing in here and put the laundry back where it's meant to be. It's not going to use up much space. In a modern one you can stack the clothes washer and dryer sort of one on top of the other because they're both front loaders. I know all the power sort of comes in right in this corner, so probably won't even have to worry too much about that. They can be connected a bit later. Once again, all the switches in here, all the old Bakelite ones. The socket over here was replaced some time ago. It's actually got a new one. You know, cupboards, they've had their day. The flooring is just a bit of old lino, which is not too bad. Just proves that it doesn't get wet. I haven't had moisture problems here. All the problems have been from this gutter that's, you know, overflowed up here. You know, it's a square sort of crappy gutter. It'd probably be alright except for where it comes out. Instead of being a normal stormwater size, it's actually only probably 1 inch. So get a big downpour, fills up the gutter. You can't have all that going through 1 inch. It has to back up somewhere, and sadly all over here, and notice in the corner here where the gutter is, it seems the electrical for the shed actually comes out of the roof in the laundry, and you can see the wire here and that goes through. But the thing that I noticed was there's only 2 active and neutral. There's no earth going from the roof. Now if we go down the back and have a look, keep going. Now this is sort of, you know, the dead space. This is where the gutter comes down, and then it goes down here, and that actually goes in a little tunnel then through to where I showed everyone before. There's a little garden here that's really not good for too much. Paint's all coming off. All the I don't know, flashing, that's starting to peel off. It's like 3 little bits here, broken window and a louver. Now what's down here now, the proposed new shed would actually use up this area. It's just a small area here of crazy paving that's named appropriately because it's good for nothing and drives me crazy with the weeds. And a little bit of concreting here that directs the water, oddly enough, towards the building rather than away from it. Now up here, got basically the clothesline. So where the clothesline is, you know, for an 6 metre by 8 metre shed would end just up where the shed ends now, but use up this room that I'm in now. Come up towards the back of the shed, and here you can see the window. This is the back. Not too bad, it's pretty straight here. It's just a grassed area. Weatherboards that I chucked there in a heap a few weeks ago. Nectarine tree that seems to have been past its use by date. And there's a bit of a fence. So basically there's quite a bit of room out here. There's probably what, 6 metres between the back of the shed and the back boundary here. It's all grassed, so there's nothing to really, it's all stuff that water could soak into rather than run off and go into the shed. So plenty of room here. Could even bring the shed out a bit more if they allow. The thing is, at the moment the shed's got a lot of crap on the roof, and well, the roof itself is just rusted corrugated iron that's probably, unless I can be corrected, probably best part of 50 years old. So the first bit will be to get rid of all the crap off the roof that's been thrown up there, and once I get the go ahead to start stripping things out and seeing what I can salvage. But at the end of the day I want a good shed here that's usable on a straight slab. Safety power, where I know if something does happen I'm not going to be electrocuted. Something that's not a liability. Something that actually adds value to the house. This here, in the event of a bushfire that's dropping embers everywhere, this would be an absolute disaster to try to defend, being wooden and having so many little nooks and crannies where embers can catch on. The guttering is an absolute disaster. You know, it sort of pours from one spot to another, but the fact that it goes through the middle of the shed and then up near the laundry, I've always had problems where that's overflowed and made a mess inside. I think the other point is too, these weatherboards are probably painted with a lead-based paint, which is another problem because it's flaking all over the place. This part of the gutter here, when we got it, was actually taped up. It was actually taped up, and I haven't even bothered putting it back because the overflow from this now just goes into a garden at the moment. It's only for about 2 metres worth of guttering anyway, and a very small part of the roof. Up here you can see where the internal gutter came out, and that is broken at the moment, which is probably good because it means it doesn't get to bank up and then pour water all over the place. Now I suppose the other thing is too, note of regard is the top of next door's shed with regard to this. So their shed has got a skillion roof on a very low angle, and it comes up, and for the sake of an argument, almost the same size. But if I raise the level up just a bit, if I get a new shed will probably be about, I don't know, a foot or two higher than that. Maybe a slightly, roughly the same angle. So if you've got a skillion roof on a slight angle, it's going to have to start off a bit taller so that the laundry's not too low. Because if that angle keeps going, you can see here where it goes down, then the laundry, you've got that, it goes right up again. That's where the problem is. Now I've actually got something there at the moment to stop water when it pours down rain in a storm. I mean, water that comes straight down's fine, but you find here when you've got a storm, water comes in on an angle exactly where it shouldn't for this, and was putting water on the inside of the shed. Now that's been happening probably for the last X years, where X is any number between 50 and since I've been here. The wastewater outlet seems to be on the outside of the wall, so it can stay there. There's actually stormwater access right on the corner of the shed, which is really good. So it means all the plumbing can hopefully go as intended, and then straight down into this. Now there's another one that is actually also very close for the house. So if I need to, I can sort of just down here offload it into one. Well, it comes off the corner of the house and down off a small section of the roof there. So there's 2 stormwater drains, could even say 3, because there's another one sort of just under the window here. Well, they can all be used to put the plumbing in as it stands at the moment without any alterations. The other option is to, all out here is a grassed area, so you know, even if I had the plumbing so that some of it went on the grass, whatever they see applicable or whatever I can do. Now at the moment when it rains, we've got concrete here on a slope. This slopes towards the house. We've got all this crazy paving here which is impervious. And basically when it pours rain, it comes down here. Now that's all concrete, it slopes the wrong way, so it's sloping towards the shed, and we end up with water coming down here like an absolute waterfall. And if we keep looking, this is where the entrance to the house is. So we end up with a huge problem with water coming down the steps. As you can see here, it looks pretty well like a potential river, and then you've got the waterfall feature. And I have got video showing this with probably 1 or 2 inches of water above this step. There's just so much water. Now by putting a new shed in with proper guttering and a little bit of work on the concrete path here, I hope to eliminate that. Anyway, that's about it. So that's the shed that I hope to replace. There are many reasons for it. I would like to use this space for something functional other than a laundry. I can't use it as a carport at the moment because you basically can't open the doors up without hitting something, either one wall or the slab on the other side, so that makes it totally useless. I don't have a boat or anything to keep in there. I'd like to use it as a workshop and general work area, not for habitation or anything. The laundry I want to move inside. That crazy paving, well, sheds usually don't come in L-shaped sizes, so basically the whole 6 metre front here, because that's actually about 6.7 metres, so more than allows for 6 metres. So 6 metres wide, 8 metres long, we'll take it right down to where it is now and basically make it fit in with what's already here, so there's not much difference in looks in the front. Probably even something the same colour, and getting panels that are horizontal, and yeah, it'll be sort of just a new for old in roughly the same place, but with current standards. A lot of detailing the plumbing, because that's driven me crazy since I've been here. Also want to look into the safety issues of things and just making sure it's not a liability. That's all.